Hi, Janet Gallen, Love Letters Live. And today's guest is someone you may know depending on what kind of things you do and what kind of culture you inhabit, and I guess how well traveled and what your historical memories may be. So it's Marc Saltar. You say Marc Saltarelli?
Yeah.
And let's just go right to you because we're going to talk about Studio One. And when I first saw your name linked to that, the first thing I thought of was, oh, hooray, Studio One, the drama series that was a
Mm.
television hit in the, I guess, early 50s. No connection to that, right?
No connection whatsoever. No.
Are you familiar with that?
I am. Yeah. I've done a lot of research in developing the film, and that always comes up as well. But I think we're kind of in the Google hits. We're kind of above that now in terms of
Okay, that's
relevance.
what you say because you're present time. Okay,
Yeah.
so why don't you just dive right in and talk about a little bit about the movie you're making and what it's about and why you are doing it and what is Studio One?
Okay. Well, first, Studio One was the very first, or almost the first. There's a discrepancy of that gay disco in America,
Where is it
and
located?
it was located in West Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
Uh, it was on Robertson. It actually spanned from Robertson Boulevard to Lapeer, so it went this way. It was huge.
I could hear
Originally,
that.
it was a camera factory that was built in the 20s, Mitchell Camera Factory, and that place actually made the cameras that filmed The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the. I mean, it's just got this history that's unbelievable. It's this kind of big. It was this kind of big, ugly factory building that was transformed in 1974
Who got a hold of
by,
Transform It?
before Scott Forbes came along, there was a place called the Factory, and that's, let's see, it was several celebrities of the time put together kind of a classic New York style cabaret room where all the stars, like Sammy Davis Jr. was one of them, um, and Paul Newman, and one other who I can't remember. They got together and turned it into a nightclub.
Okay.
Uh, and then Scott Forbes came along in 1974, and he was a regular at the club because he was interested in becoming a star himself. So that's where you went, apparently. And he
Is
decided to.
he an actor or is he still with us?
Um, no, he's not. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. No, he's not an actor. He actually was an eye doctor, an
Oh,
ophthalmologist. Yeah,
yeah.
and he decided to give all that up and create this disco.
Okay.
It was 1974, and the gay civil rights movement was just kind of coming out. It was a few years after Stonewall, the Stonewall riot, that kind of kicked everything into high gear. And he turned it into, the place for gay men who, at that time, were kind of living double lives. Any bars,
Oh, in the 70s, living double
yeah,
life still. I see. Okay.
yeah. I mean, for any bars that were around at that time in West Hollywood, there were like private entrances,
Oh,
you
I was going to ask about
snuck
that because
in.
if you're living a gay life, a double life, you don't want to be seen walking into a
Yeah,
gay safety haven.
right. And you also didn't want the police to harass, which they did regularly.
Oh,
Um, One interesting side note is the reason West Hollywood became known for all of its gay bars is because it was out of the reach of LAPD. It was a unincorporated area at that time, so it was run by.
because it was unincorporated, it was out of the reach.
Yeah, it was in the purview of the LA, I mean, LA County sheriffs,
Oh,
and they were a lot more lenient than back then. And the LAPD was pretty rough. They still are, I guess, but back then it was crazy. They would frequently arrest people for being gay, for
But West Hollywood is now its own city, is it not?
it's its own city, but it still has the sheriffs.
Okay.
They
Oh,
hire the LA
yeah.
County sheriffs. Yeah. Um, so going into a bar back then was the back entrance. You'd look around, you hope nobody would see you. Scott wanted to kind of change all of that, and he created this disco that was huge, and they had 1,000 people at least every night. That's how big it was. It was massive. You'd go up these stairs, the factory stairs, and get to the top, and then there would be this fantasy world, you know. Um, and to get into the place, you had to stand outside in line. And when it got really popular, there was a long line. And that was the first time that people would actually stand outside and not be afraid, I guess, even though there were people driving by throwing bottles or yelling, you know, horrible things. They decided this is the place you can go and you can be yourself. You don't have to worry about the outside world and about the fear that was always there. So it was really a groundbreaking landmark place for a lot of people of that age. Um, and then a little bit after it opened, which is really what made it so special, in my opinion, the back area, which, you know, it's a huge, long building, keep in mind. And so the disco was sort of over here, and then there was this whole back area that wasn't really being used, a lot of empty space. So Scott decided that he would start this New York style cabaret room there, which was called the
It was
Backlot.
entertainment.
Entertainment, yeah. But not only for gay people. It
I was
was,
going
you
to ask
know,
about that. Yes,
yeah.
because today, if you open someplace that's primarily gay and you've got good entertainment, everyone's going to come.
Well, he was the first to
Uh-huh.
integrate the communities. Huge stars started coming there. And the reason why is because actually, when it first opened, it didn't get a lot of business, probably for that reason. Because, you know, it was in a gay bar and who would go there? But Cheetah Rivera was working on the musical Chicago with Bob Fosse, and Bob Fosse, they were rehearsing, and Bob Fosse, you know, infamously had his heart attack, and that shut the whole production down for almost 9 months, I think.
Uh-huh.
So Cheetah had all of this time off. You know, what is she going to do? And Liza, do I have to say her last name? Liza Minnelli said you should start your own cabaret act, nightclub act. And so she did, and John Kander and Fred Ebb, uh, who wrote Chicago and many other great musicals, and gave Liza her New York, New York song. They put together an act for her, talked her into doing it, and they tried it out in New York, and then they said you have to bring it to Hollywood, to LA. People have to see this. So Liza's father, uh, Vincent Minnelli, the famous film director, was a friend of Scott Forbes because he loved Hollywood history, and he loved the history of that building. And he set it up so that she would premiere for 2 weeks at the Backlot. And Liza invited all of her friends, like from Jimmy Stewart to, I mean, literally everybody, Cary Grant, Betty Davis, everybody showed up for Cheetah. And it was this huge hit. The whole city kind of heard about it. And so from that point on, it sort of became the place to go if you want to see top-notch, you know, New York style cabaret.
And you have
Um,
Cheetah Rivera now in your movie.
yes, I do. Yeah, that's what's so thrilling.
So
Um,
tell us more. Okay, I'm sorry. I want to back up a little bit because a lot of this is new to me, and I'm sure it is new to a lot of people. Um, who's in your movie and who wrote it? And
well, yeah, it's a documentary, so I guess I wrote it in terms of structuring, but
uh-huh.
all of these people really wrote it through their sharing of interviews. I interviewed about, oh God, 40 people at least
Oh,
of an
okay.
hour each. So
Will
there
we
was a
be able?
lot of,
Will we be able to stream it?
at some point, yeah, not currently. We're currently on the festival circuit. We
Okay.
premiered it at Outfest in July,
Oh,
and we went to. It was sold out. So many people just passionate about those times, and that place kind of represents their youth. And then we went to North Carolina and won the audience award there, even though people had never heard of Studio One. So that's good to know that, you know, you don't have to really have a personal connection to connect to the movie because
why
it's
did you go to North Carolina?
that was just the next festival that
Oh, there was a
accepted
festival.
the film. Right? Yeah,
Okay, so
they have
I'm
it.
sorry, I'm a little bit behind the
Okay.
times here. I'm so sorry. But again, Outfest
Yeah.
is what?
Outfest is the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Festival. It's been in existence for now 42 years.
42 years?
Yeah,
I'm
42
so
years.
embarrassed that I don't know that.
It's a big one.
Oh,
And that's kind of the perfect place for us to start
sure.
because it's here. It's the home of
And this
Studio One.
festival has been welcomed every year, everywhere.
We are next, or actually in a couple of days, we're going to San Diego. We'll be going to Chicago for Reeling Film Festival, and then Atlanta, and another North Carolina festival
Okay.
in Winston-Salem.
And so far, it's
And
all national. Have you been invited internationally to other?
actually, we'll be in Oslo, Norway,
Oh,
which
so
is
okay, you're
that's our
worldwide.
first international, yeah. And lots more that I can't announce yet, but
Okay.
some really exciting ones that it'll be in. And we hope, ultimately after we do the festival circuit that we can sell it and have it on Netflix or one of those
So I
forever.
I interrupted because you were touching on things that I was ignorant about, but get back to who's in it and
Mhm. Well, I knew, I, okay, so I actually went to Studio One when I first moved here around 1984.
oh, I'm
Uh,
yeah.
I went to Loyola Marymount to finish my film degree, and I had heard, I had just come out as a gay person, and I had heard about Studio One because it was famous. Um, and so I have, some memories of going there. I didn't jump into the dance that much. I just kind of watched on the side. It was quite, surreal, I guess, the
You
place
tend to be a shy
itself.
person.
Well, I was especially back then, but not as much now, hopefully. But I thought that, oh, this has just been here, it was kind of a ripoff of Studio 54, the infamous. Uh, I had no idea until I started working on the film that it went way back to 1974 and everything that happened there. Um, so it was revealing to me, and that was when I started back in 2019. That's how long I've been working on it. Um, I researched, and I should give kudos to Clifford Bell, who connected me with Lloyd Coleman and Gary Steinberg, who were backlot producers in the 80s. And they kind of got me started because they were planning a reunion before the building was to be torn down.
Well,
Uh,
you've done something huge here, and I have a question about you, if I may. If it's not too personal, you can tell me if it is. But
okay.
you referred to the moment that you came out as a gay man. How old were you?
Oh, I was 19. That was
So,
it. I was in Illinois. Yeah.
what was life like before that? I mean, so many people today just grow up with it. I mean, they know early,
Yeah.
and they're not, you know, confused by it, and they're comfortable with it. What 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 was your life like before, and what made you decide to come out?
Well, growing up in Illinois in Peoria, a very conservative place.
Is that right?
I mean, I knew I was different, and being Catholic made it
From
a little bit
childhood?
harder. Well, by the time I was, 10 or 11, I started kind of realizing that. And since I was Catholic and an altar boy, I kind of prayed, "Oh, please make this go away."
Oh,
Yeah, that was what I went through. But ultimately, I realized you can't really make it go away. But I couldn't
and why
bring
should
myself,
you?
right?
Yeah.
But back then, it was, a whole different world.
How did your parents react?
Well, I didn't tell them until my mother just figured it out
How did
later
she
when I was
figure
in
it out?
college. She just knew, and that was a moment when I said yes, and we both cried. And so she went to therapists, and she went to one that said, "Oh, he can be changed."
Oh my
And
goodness.
so she fired him, fortunately, and went to another, and kind of figured it out for herself. And she was the best mom I ever could hope
Oh, that is
for
so
my whole
wonderful. I'm
life.
sure
Yeah.
you're the best son ever too. And
And
there's so many wonderful, I mean, I know of so many because of friends, so many wonderful, uplifting, funny, adorable coming out stories. I'm hoping somebody will do a book of them someday.
yeah, oh, there's 100,000 of them. Just like stories about
Yeah.
Studio One,
And,
there's
and
there's so many.
your father part of the family also?
Yeah, my parents divorced when I was 6 years old,
Oh,
but my father subsequently moved here 2 years after I did. Was a professor at USC,
What did he
and he
teach?
transferred. He taught linguistics, origin of language, and he's still with us and living in Westwood. Uh, and he always accepted me as well. So I've been really fortunate because
That
so many
wonderful.
people, especially back then, but still now, have parents who just shun them and throw them out.
You
But
do
I've
hear
been
about
really
that.
fortunate.
You do hear about that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And my brother as well. Once he found out, he accepted. Everybody accepted me, which was something I didn't expect, maybe, or I was just afraid. But once I
Isn't that just a
told
tribute
my
to
truth, yeah,
everybody? Tribute to
yeah,
all of you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm very fortunate. But still, I guess it's difficult for young people today.
Is it still?
From what I've been told, yeah, probably mostly because of the phones. It's
What
a
do you mean?
different kind of world. They're kind of they're disconnected from people, and there's still a lot of hate going on, and it's kind of being stoked by, certain political movements.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's why I feel this film is so relevant, that it took so long to finally get it out. Maybe
Oh,
is a good thing, because right now in this moment, it's important to remember the history, because the film not only talks about the history of that place, but the
right.
history of the whole gay rights movement from 74 to 93. And
Okay,
a lot happened. Yeah.
that's good
I
to know.
mean,
So
the
you think
excitement.
this film may correct some ills?
Well,
And
it's just a preservation of our history that some people are trying to erase. And it's a reminder, of course, to the people who lived through those eras and who survived the 80s, of course, with AIDS crisis. Just remind us where we came from, and for younger people who have no idea how they got their rights and how fragile they
oh,
are. I think,
oh yes, that's
yeah,
very important.
yeah. And it's hard to get them to pay attention, because they're on TikTok and they like 20-second things. But hopefully some of them will sit for the 90 minutes. And the ones who did go to the screenings, I mean, it just told me how much it moved them and how they had no idea of what AIDS was,
Really?
in the 80s. Yeah. I mean, they know what AIDS is. It's really easy. You just take a pill or whatever. It's not a big deal.
Right.
And some of them have no clue what kind of a tragedy it was for almost an entire decade or more.
Yeah.
And the film definitely, covers that. That's not all about AIDS, but that was an important part, because Joan Rivers hosted the very first AIDS benefit, and they had death threats. That's part of our film. Melissa talks about her mother. Uh, it was the first benefit for APLA before anybody did it, before Liz Taylor was involved, and this film kind of gives her her
Yes.
due.
Well, so now you're involved in showing at festivals.
Mm,
When we can stream, you will let us all know right away, I'm guessing.
sure. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We're working on sending it out to distributors, and seeing who will pick it up.
Okay. Now, so is filmmaking kind of the first thing you did professionally? I mean, you were young when you started this.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I used to make home movies with my friends in Peoria. So
So it's not like you were, had some other profession and then you switched into this. This was you.
no, this is all I know how to do. It's
So
all I ever wanted to do.
now you're established as a filmmaker. And I hate to do this, but I'm curious, what next? You
What
have
next?
something in mind for the next project?
I have a lot of things in mind. I started doing narrative, dramatic short films, and I sort of got sidetracked with documentary, because with the documentary you don't need a lot of advanced funding. So it was kind of perfect, for me
I
to
think
just
I
start
think
making the
people are
movie.
I think people are so drawn to documentaries. And I have an idea as to, I mean, I look for documentaries daily for new documentaries. Why do you think? What is the power of them, even over a dramatic
But
presentation?
well, obviously they're real, but if you're doing it correctly, you use kind of the same skills and that you would for a dramatic film
Sure.
structurally. It's really the same thing. If you want to pull your audience forward and give them an emotional catharsis or whatever, it's sort of the same thing in a way. You're just
Except for
using
one thing. As an audience, when you, I think, you tell me what you think, when you watch a documentary, you feel that you're getting the truth. You're getting,
mm,
like you said, something real. You're getting the truth or a truth. In a drama, you have to tease it out. What part is, I don't know.
right. Well, you don't expect the truth. I mean, even when they're telling a true story, like I've been watching Painkiller, the series, which is amazing. You should check it out on Netflix about the opioid crisis.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a they say that yes, this is based on true stories, but you have to dramatize it.
Yeah.
And I guess in a documentary, the same way. I mean, I'm telling the truth as I see it, and certain things I try to give multiple viewpoints so the audience can decide, well,
So you
what's
do
the truth
like what kind of
from
thing?
different people, right? Like for example, there was a protest because they didn't allow women or people of color in the 70s, and there was a big protest against Studio One, and that's part of the film.
Oh, really?
There was this infamous no open-toed shoes allowed, which was really
Say that again?
no open-toed shoes were allowed. So
Oh,
women were turned away if they had, which they always did back then, open-toed shoes. And the real reason was to keep women out. Scott, for all of what he did, had flaws, and I don't think he was racist, but he wanted a place for white gay men only. And eventually he changed as the 80s came along. But that's a part of the story, and it's a part of the times, I guess. There were other clubs that opened up that had no admission, discrimination policy. So yeah, we deal with all of it, not only the wonderful stuff like Cheetah coming and having it blow up,
sure.
and then there's a story about Betty Davis introducing Geraldine Fitzgerald. They were in Dark Victory together, and Betty introduced her. And we have all of the photographs of that night. We have Betty Davis sitting in the back lot smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like I've made a movie that has Betty Davis in it, which is really cool
Yeah,
for me.
that's something. Let me ask you something because I am so, clearly about the power of written letters, handwritten love letters, which includes a lot. Love letter can be pretty much any kind that's about the other guy. If you were to write one right now, and I hope you do, and to whom would it be? And are you a letter writer anyway?
Not lately. I guess I used to be. Yeah,
Who would you write one
more
to
of a
right now if you were to just pick somebody? If you
well,
can.
my mother passed away about 2 years ago, and I don't think there's a day that goes by where I don't, think about her.
Okay, so
And
just because
what,
somebody has passed away is not a reason not to write to them,
right?
as if they're
Yeah.
sitting right there. So,
And she had developed this Parkinson's,
uh,
and the last couple of years of her life were really, really bad. And I have no idea what she was thinking. And I tried to tell her when she was still here, uh, you know, how much I loved her and appreciated her, but I still remember things that I didn't tell her. So I guess that would be the letter I would write.
oh,
Yep.
that's just beautiful. And I'm going to cry. To whom would you send it to?
Just to the ether, I guess, hoping that she can hear. I think she can.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
feel I feel her presence.
Let me ask you something because, as I say, I always think a love letter should be put in the mailbox, which is a
Mhm.
really powerful feeling, I think, and addressed to somebody. And you could always, did you call her mom? What did you call her?
Yeah, no,
Okay, so dear mom, I'm writing this to you because you're right here beside me wherever you may be. Well, however you want to start it, you're a dramatist, you could do it. And but I'm sending it to, it could be to your dad, to your siblings, to are there children in your life?
my own children, no,
No, no, no. I
no.
mean any children, nieces,
Um,
nephews.
well, my niece and nephew, but they're grown up children, but I still see them as,
But you could always say, I'm writing this to you, but I'm going to send it to their names
uh,
just so they can know how much I loved you and what you were to me.
that's beautiful. Yeah,
Why not?
definitely.
You could send one to, to your dad, and you could send one to yourself
Oh, okay.
and stick it somewhere. I mean, you
Uh,
address the envelope, Marc Saltarelli,
uh,
your own address. When it gets to you in the mail, it's kind of, seeing your own handwriting on an envelope,
mhm.
turn it to him. And when you see it, and handwriting, I think, is just essential. When you read it, you will find, I'm sure, that the you who wrote it and the you reading it are two different people.
Mm. Actually, it's interesting. I went back to Illinois and we were cleaning things out, and I found these letters that I wrote when I was probably 15 or 16, and I
Oh,
read them. I couldn't believe how wonderful my handwriting looked back then, because it certainly doesn't look that way now, but we don't write that much anymore. Um, but it
if
was
if it
fascinating.
if it's short enough for you to do, if it's a long letter, which it could be, I say do it on your word processor, but be sure to sign it and date it under
Yeah,
yourself,
absolutely.
and maybe
Yeah,
a little, just some indication that you've been there and it wasn't some AI job.
right, definitely. Yeah, but reading my 15-year-old, 16-year-old self
Uh-huh.
was weird because I didn't really know who that person was. I mean, I always thought of myself like more shy and introverted, but that kid didn't sound that way.
Oh, good.
So
Oh,
I think I had this impression, I don't know why, but that I grew out of, hopefully.
good for you. The power of found letters, opening doors that you didn't. Oh, I'm so glad you found those.
Yeah, that was quite an
Okay.
experience. And also I found, for some reason, my mother kept a trunk that she didn't show us of all of her life before my brother and I came along.
Hmm.
And in high school, and her yearbooks with all her boyfriends, and I saw a side of my mother that I didn't see, because after the divorce she kind of was a little bit depressed.
You could put that in your love letter to her.
Yeah,
Oh my God. Maybe you
definitely.
want to do a series of love letters to her. I want to write her a love letter.
Yeah, that's what I talk about, I guess, because I never got the chance to talk about that part of her life very much. When she was happy and young and everything was, you know, when the world was at her feet and anything could have happened, and she married my dad and everything. But
But isn't that kind of, a happiness or a relief to you to know that she had that?
yeah, I did, yeah, it really, really was comforting to see her like that, instead of, not that she wasn't ever happy, but I saw a subdued part of her a lot, and she would come and visit me here in LA 2, maybe 3 times a year, and she loved that. She remarried and stepped out, but she went on her own, and my husband and I took her to all kinds of things that she loved.
Nice.
Uh, she loved going to the TV show taping, so I'd always have something for her to go to.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so
All right. So I mean, I'm listening to you. There's so many possibilities of beautiful letters to write. You just said my husband and I, you can always,
mhm.
there's something. And people, as you see, people don't throw those away.
Yep.
They keep them. I want to thank you for doing this with me.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
I am so glad to have learned what your Studio One is, as opposed to my 1950s TV show.
Okay,
Good for you. I'll look forward to seeing it when it's available to the public.
sure. If you want to check out more information about it and festivals, it's
Is
www.studio1forever.com.
that all small letters?
Yeah, it's all one, one is spelled out. So
Okay.
studio1forever.com. And
For
that'll actually take you to my website, which I've turned into just for the film.
Okay, good to know about all this. Good to
Yeah,
know. I'm so glad we met. And I'm going to tell you goodbye for now. And if I'm hoping our paths cross again at some point over something that you're doing.
that'd be
So
wonderful. Appreciate
thank
it.
you, dear, very, very much.